Mr. Home is in studio ready for a wonderful conversation. Mr. Home, good morning and welcome to our mini morning drive.
Good morning, Kate, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. A delightful morning, cool weather. I think the cold season has started. Time to keep ourselves warm, cup of tea, cup of uji, better dressing, so we can deal with the cold. But we're happy this morning to have the discussion about life stage financial planning, and we look at the 40s. You know, they always say life starts at 40. I'm never sure why life starts at 40, but maybe today we'll find out.
Yeah.
So I want to invite our listener. Thank you for being with us. I know you're always here with us, and we delight in having you here. My name is Wahome Ngari from the Personal Finance Academy. And like I've said many times before, my work is easier just to empower you so that you can grow better with your money and you avoid running the financial rat race. And so that's why we have a lot of programs here and there. We talk to people, we talk to groups. We also give what we call the masterclass, structured learning. And we have an intake that is in progress at the moment. And if you want to take a chance and make sure that you don't run the financial rat race for the second part of the year, you have a way of avoiding it by just joining like-minded progressives. So we can learn the basic formula of wealth creation, we can learn the psychology of money, and we learn what they avoided teaching us in school. So if you're looking out for the opportunity, I think we have an opportunity now. We have an open day on Tuesday next week, and if you join us, there is no doubt you're going to understand something very critical. Why do you deal with money the way you deal with money? Maybe you're part of the people who are always shopping. You get home, then you start wondering, how did I buy all these things? Or you're the person who is always missing opportunities here and there. I think understanding the psychology will be very, very important for you. And so we have 2 hours. It's a virtual training on Zoom. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. And you can always take a chance. So we invite you to take a chance. And people always ask, how do I take a chance? You just send a text or a WhatsApp to 0708 150 137, and somebody on the other side will actually be able to help you so that you take a chance. But today we are happy as we look at life planning in the 40s. We look at the financial issues and the interventions that are best suited in those in the 40s, because like we said, life starts at 40.
And we want to find out if it is actually true. And if we really want to experience life starting at 40, what do we need to do? You remember, my dear listener, last time when we had our session, we talked about the 30s. So the financial planning that we talked about in 30s, if you take them seriously and keenly, surely life is going to begin at 40.
Good, because financial planning is never a one-size-fits-all. We are all different. We have different backgrounds. We have different resources. But it's sort of an evolving process that mirrors the different ages of our life. So as we move from one phase to the next phase, you know, some financial priorities will always shift. Less important. And that is where we need to recognize where we are and how we can proactively adjust our strategies so that we have what we call long-term financial well-being. So in today's discussion, we'll be looking at financial issues and interventions for those who are in the 40s. We talked about the 20s, and I know you can remember well about the 20s. This is a decade of discovery. You've actually earned your first money, and you know, you try out everything you can with this money. And we say, yeah, we make our mistakes, we get into unnecessary debt, we do overspending and all those things, but you know, we are lucky at that point. Chances are we have somebody we can fall back to, maybe our parents, and they'll support us. But when you hit your 30s, which we call our foundation years, now we sort of setting ourselves out, maybe settling down as a family, and that is a decade of settlement and expansion. And we saw this is the time now we have joined our careers. This is the time maybe we're starting our family. And so when we get over that, now we come into the 40s, and this is generally the time of raising the children, you know. They will go to school from mid-school to secondary school to college as we get into our 50s. This is the time we are managing very, very many competing demands. There are just so many things that needs to be done, and that's why we call it the consolidation decade in life, where there's a lot of heavy lifting. When we say heavy lifting, we're saying there are just too many things that need attention, And this is when we deal with the bigger bills in life. If you consider tertiary education will come in this point, maybe home ownership will come in at this point, investments will come in at this point. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done. And so we need to get prepared so that when we get into this consolidation phase, even as we are doing the heavy lifting, we are able to go on. And this phase sometimes is referred as the lean years. Lean because we have many things that we need to manage. You know, we have to pay school fees. We have to save for retirement. We have daily expenses that we are dealing with, and sometimes we feel overwhelmed. And maybe we are in the process of home ownership, and so it's easy to lose sight of long-term goals. Although this period can be financially constrained, it is also temporary because, you know, we're paying off the home loans, we're paying off the car loans, we're paying off the property loans. And children will actually be getting a bit older, they go into school, and not too long from now, they're actually going to become free. And so we will have some breathing space as we grow. So providing opportunities so that we can refocus in a wealth building. And that's why we need to be able to say, so what are the issues that we need to focus on now so that now we can be able to get into others. Since it's the consolidation phase, we sort of in the 40s established in our careers. You know, the teacher is a teacher. They may be in the private school or public school, but they have chosen to become a teacher. The nurse is the nurse. In the 30s, we said we change. We change location, we change places. But here now we sort of established. We may be established in family. Somebody was settling down, has settled down. If they wanted to have children, they have children. And we also established in society. You know, in the neighborhood where you live, this is the generation that's going to serve us in the committee. If you look into church, these are the people who are actually serving in various committees in church. In school, these are the people who are in the PTA. So we sort of established now, but we have big budget items to deal with. One of the big budget items we have to deal with is our children's school fees, because now they are in, most likely they're going to be in upper primary and in a boarding school. Then they go to high school, maybe a boarding school, then they go to college. And this is the duration for concluding home ownership. We do not want home ownership to go into the 50s because we don't want to deal with it with our pension. So we started in the 30s, and this time we are concluding. So we have need for other income streams, and that is why in this decade we focus a bit more on investments, maybe setting up a business, maybe property ownership. But what's interesting, this is the decade when retirement now comes to mind. Why? Because when you join to work in your 20s, the people you found have retired. So you actually know retirees. In the olden days, you know, Kate, they were giving retirees a wheelbarrow. I think that has stopped. And so if you're in your 40s, chances are you have found a guy who was given the wheelbarrow, and you looked at it and say, do I want to end up there? And maybe we say, let me change. Maybe I want to do things different. So we are focusing on retirement. We have very many demanding societal responsibilities. In 40s, for a lot of us, and we live in the African setup, we have aging parents. And now aging parents become our concern. We have to find out how they're living, maybe provide for their Medicare, maybe hire servants to stay with them, keep seeing them occasionally, and sometimes even ask, moving them from one location to the other. I mean, if you come from the very, very cold places and your parents are suffering, say, from arthritis, that becomes time when you have to move them maybe to a warmer place. You might have siblings, younger siblings, and your parents are aging. It becomes your responsibility to take care of your younger siblings, so you're seeing your younger sister, your younger brother through college. So you can see a lot of societal responsibilities. And like we said, at the community level, in the neighborhood where we live, in our place of worship, where children go to school, we have a lot of responsibilities. Even at the professional level, you know, if you belong to a professional body and you look at who is holding office, who is the chair, who is the secretary, it's going to be the people in the 40s. And that is why, Kate, there is something called a midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, this is a generation that gets hit by midlife crisis. It's a possibility for anybody. And where does it come from? It's actually a financial issue. And you see, like, your peers are moving much faster than you. You know, they have a car, they have a second car, they have a home, their children are going to group or schools. And you're looking at yourself and wondering, what am I doing with my life? How come everybody else is moving fast and I'm not moving fast? And sometimes we make radical decisions, and if they're not well managed, things can go south. We can have conflict at the family level. And unfortunately, this is a decade when a lot of divorces happen, because now everybody is looking at things from a different perspective, and those divorces are very devastating, especially to the children, because children have learned to live in an environment where there's two parents, and so this becomes something that's very, very important to deal with. And because most of those things come from finances, financial planning becomes very, very key. Like on the road, there's a truck that they say doesn't have a center bolt, and it tends to go sideways. So if we don't have a financial plan, we are sort of drifting sideways, and that becomes very, very difficult. And so that's why we need to look at the financial planning, and that's why we want to actually look at why is it crucial, why is it pivotal that if you want to look at long-term stability, we want to fund our children, we want to prepare for our retirement, then we have to plan and plan well. And in the Kenyan environment, individuals at this age group, they face very unique challenges. We are living in this economy, and I'm sure, we saw the statistics. I think we just listened to them in the news. Inflation is slightly come down to 3.8%. But broadly, what are we saying? Hakuna pesa. Yeah. I think we hear that a lot. So we have to live in that environment. Yes, the cost of living is rising, whichever way we look at it. And there's limited social security. We don't have a system for government. If you lost a job, what happens to you? We don't have that. So there are key issues that we need to be able to look at and need to plan for if you're in the 40s, especially if you're in this republic. So we need to see what are these issues and what are the options that we can be able to look at, so that planning gets to be much easier. Like we said, we have to handle the big budget items, and we can only be able to handle them if we are able to plan for them, plan well. So one of the very key issues.
Maybe, Mr. Home, before we start on what to do why do we need to plan, let us take a very short commercial break, and then when we come back, we continue with our conversation.
Thank you. We said life starts in the 40s. We are actually looking at people who were born in the 80s. They went to school in the 90s, finished the last part of schooling during the first term of President Kibaki, and started working in the second term. I know they've settled thereafter. And so one of the big issues is about retirement planning. Because for many Kenyans in their 40s, they joined the job market when every month you contributed 200 shillings. Your employer contributed 200 shillings, and that made 400. And so at the end of the year, you have just put in 4,800. Now, obviously, that's too little. That is not sufficient. And because that's not sufficient, I know the numbers have gone up subsequently because the laws have changed. But we need to be able to say, that generation, this age set, have no possibility of retiring and getting support by their children. That's the reality of life now. We don't have a social structure that is going to take care of this generation, just like other generations older than them. So that's why part of the possible solutions is to maximize for those who are in pension schemes. If you're a member of a pension scheme, then you have to maximize. You have to make more contribution. You have to do something called additional voluntary contribution. You have to maximize your NSSF contribution, and this is where contracting out comes in. If you not heard about contracting out, you need to talk to the trustees of your scheme to see that a portion of your money is not retained by NSSF, but it is invested by the private investors who give you a better return. As part of maximizing, so we said you can do additional voluntary contributions, you can get your NSSF contribution given to a private investor to be able to do investment for you. That's what is called contracting out. You can be a member of a personal pension scheme so that you work on that. And it is important to consider joining any of the tax-efficient options that the Retirement Benefits Authority allows. There are many approved schemes that allow you tax-efficient options. Why are we saying tax-efficient options? Because on a monthly basis, you can contribute up to 30,000 shillings every month without paying tax on that money. And because you're not paying tax on that money, then you're making a savings in the money that would have gone into taxes. I've just heard in the news, this likelihood of the tax brackets changing. And now we need to be able to save as much as we can. And the law has just recently changed. So when you get to the point of retirement, you can be able to collect your retirement benefits from those schemes tax-free. So it is important to consider joining your employer scheme, joining an umbrella scheme, or joining a personal pension scheme. It is also important to diversify investments so that we can finance our retirement. And there are many options. There are many options in real estate, so we can actually go into the real estate space. You can be able to own an apartment, you can own a flat, you can own a rental space, you can own a shop, and that becomes a possibility for us to be able to finance our retirement. Now, the other option is buying shares. That's a possibility. Buying government bonds, taking out an annuity, or even having passive business. So what we're saying is, even if you're a member of a scheme, it becomes important to supplement the retirement income that you're going to get. And the starting point for a lot of people is, if you can get an expert to help you establish roughly how much money will you need every month when you retire. You get a financial advisor, they can work out that for you, and you will have an idea how much money will require, because they will be able to look at what's the inflation rate, what's your cost of living now, and they can help you establish. When you get that number established, the money you need every month when you retire, then you can structure your investment so that they can avail the funds. And that makes it possible for us to be able to deal with one of the bigger issues, and that is retirement financing. The other bigger issue that requires attention is rising cost of education. And education, especially at the tertiary level, at the college level, at the university level, is increasing. And we've had all these government interventions putting in financing models, but a lot of parents struggle with their children. We go to secondary school, sometimes we are using the SACCO to finance it, but when you go to college, we find that's not viable, and even using loans is not easy. Starting early to prepare for those stages becomes very, very important for our children's education, because the reality of life in this country is we need to give our children the best we can. That gives them the opportunity. So one of the possible ways of dealing with that issue is we start early, and we can start with early savings plans, and there are a couple of early savings plans. You can take child education insurance, and I think the insurance industry does very well there. You can put together a money market fund that can help you with that. Or some people actually use the cooperative. You can use the cooperative, and maybe you designate your dividends as a way to pay school fees, and it has worked for a lot of people. Again, those are things you start very early. Depending on where you are, you can also explore the possibility of scholarships. Then there are very many scholarships out there. Some of our universities, I think I can single out Strathmore, they've got sports scholarships. So if your child is very good in sporting, you can actually be able to look at that, so that we can have affordable ways of financing higher education. But there are also ways of looking at it and saying, must we go to the university, or can we go to a TVET college? You might look at your child and you see they are good at doing things. Or why do we have to go to the university? We can go to TVET, and TVET is not more expensive. So the step here to do is to get a financial advisor. They help you work out what's the projected cost at every level. What's the projected cost at secondary school? What's the projected cost at the university? Depending on what course you're looking at, what university you're looking at, and that makes planning a possibility when you get these numbers projected. So that would help us to deal with two big issues, retirement financing and education financing. The other bigger issue is about the high cost of living and debt management. This country is indebted, and the citizens are equally very, very indebted. Mm-hmm. So many Kenyans in their 40s, they are burdened by debt. They have a mortgage loan, they have a car loan, they have personal debts, they owe the SHIROC, and there's a lot of weight out there. And so one of the things we can obviously be able to do is to consider prioritizing paying how to pay our debts. And we always say, let's list them out. Let's pick out the ones that have high interest, because those ones are going to give us a lot of trouble. The one we owe the credit card, the one we owe the digital lender, the one we owe the SHIROC, the unsecured ones. Those are the ones we need to pay much, much faster. For the others that we have, we can do something we call debt consolidation. Instead of owing too many people, we can borrow from the SACCO, pay everybody else, and so we're able to pay back the SACCO. But we can also go in and renegotiate the terms of the debts. If you have a loan and you're supposed to pay in 2 years, you can negotiate for 3 or 4 years. It gives you a bit more time. But for it to be a success, I think we need to adopt a strict budget so that we can avoid unnecessary borrowing. This literally means getting the family, getting ourselves to live within our means and being good money managers. Because a lot of trouble is sometimes we are not good money managers. And here I would say if you get an investment advisor, they can help you with debt management. They can help you to see if you have a mortgage, what are the steps you take so that you make prompt redemption, you pay it faster, and you're going to save a lot of interest. So issues around debt management becomes very, very critical. The other big issue that we have to deal with is healthcare. The cost of healthcare in this country is rising all the time. We do not have adequate arrangements out there, social arrangements. So where there's no adequate arrangement and a lot of people don't even have insurance, that becomes very, very tricky. And so part of it is adopting a healthy lifestyle. Yes, in our 40s, we need to have a healthy lifestyle. Maybe what are we eating? Are we sensitive of what we're eating? And the challenge in this country, when we start making a bit of money, we get the taste for processed food. And the doctors are telling us that's where lifestyle diseases are coming from because of how we're living. We love our nyama, but sometimes we eat too much of that nyama, so it becomes a problem. Drinking, and here I'm talking about drinking water, that thing that's not very nice to do in the cold season. We need to be able to do that. We need to do medical checkup, very, very, very important. As we get into this stage, the body started slowing down. That's why they say life starts at 40. So we need to be able to do some medical checkup so that if something is not right, it can be caught much, much earlier. And so it is important to secure medical insurance, private cover, or we are lucky if we have an employer scheme, but enrolling in SHA is not an option. We have all the debates, is it working, is it not working? But I don't think that's a lot of debate that we should have, and we should include our dependents in our medical cover, because should anything happen, then we're obviously going to have a lot of issues. It's also good to look at family history. If we have a family history where we have critical illnesses happening, we're seeing the trends. That's why we need to do checkup more. We need to do exercise, and if need be, we can actually buy insurance for that. If you come from a family where there are heart issues, the issues around arthritis, the issues around blood pressure, it might be necessary for you to say, how do I do this? But one of the key things is to build an emergency fund. Some money that we can be able to use if we have an unexpected medical bill. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to destroy our savings around that. The other key issue in this age set is about job security and income diversification. As you appreciate, there's just that much need for the money that we need to have. So we face a lot of job instability. We just seen early this year, Trump signed some order and a lot of people lost their jobs. So we need to be able to say, how do we survive with all this job instability and where there's a lot of economic shifts, there's a lot of layoffs, there's a lot of business failure. And the solution is very interesting. One of the solutions is we need to upscale ourselves so that we remain competitive. We need to learn the new ways. Things like digital skills, like having professional certifications. Those ones are very important. They make us versatile. They make it easier for us to change. I think this is a time when we might need to start that side hustle. We need to have a side business. It might be agribusiness, it might be consultancy, it might be something in e-commerce, and that's going to give us the extra income. So if you're in the 40s, I think that's something you want to consider. We also want to focus our investments. We want to invest a bit more in other income streams. So we want to see how we're doing. Have we set up a money market fund somewhere? Some passive investments that can help us. Do we have some rental investments somewhere? Are we earning some dividend from shares? We have special funds now. We have funds like Mansa X, like Oak Fund. we're members of the cooperative, we're buying government bonds. I think that's critical for us in the 40s so that we have multiple income streams. And if our main income didn't come, we will have a fallback position. The other issue is around inflation and investment erosion. Yes, inflation sometimes gets very high. It's about 3.8% for the month of May. But high inflation reduces the value of our savings over time. And so we actually need to invest in what we call inflation-resistant assets. It's good to think about what are these assets that resist inflation. Real estate is one. Yeah, land. I know this generation still buys land, so we cannot begrudge them. Some of them are so savvy. They have actually found out that you can actually buy gold in the gold market or do US dollar denominated investments. And that's a possibility because we have very many of them. If you look at our money market fund, if you look at special funds, you can do dollar designated. But wherever we're making, we should avoid keeping too much cash in banks where we don't get a lot of interest. I think that's an important thing that we can be able to do. And where we are making contributions, we can obviously increase our contributions as time moves on. The contributions you make in a SACCO, every 3 years, some increment. What we do in the pension scheme, what we do in the insurance, the money market fund, even in the CHAMA, convince your peers after every 3 years, we need to invest. For this generation, there's another key issue that we need to think about. Now, these are aging people. These are people with families, so we have to think about estate planning and wealth transfer. Very, very important. Because a lot of Kenyans neglect writing wills or other estate planning approaches, and this exposes families to disputes, a lot of disputes. I think it's a very common thing. And a lot of assets end up in the wrong hands, and people don't get it. So we can actually recommend that consider drafting a legal will so that there can be a smoother way of transferring your wealth. Consider buying life insurance because that will protect those who financially depend on you. And if possible, you can set up a trust which is going to manage the family wealth so that minors can be taken care of, or dependents with special needs can be taken care of. This is a critical age when we have to think about property ownership. Do we jointly own the property? Do we own the property, we become tenants in common for all the family assets, or do we form a family trust? And that becomes another important thing. Before time runs out, it is important to consider the issue of supporting aging parents, because that's a reality. Because many people in their 40s are supporting their parents who do not have a lot of income of their own. So it is important to include them in your financial plan when you're setting up your medical cover, maybe a monthly allowance for them. And also, if they can, encourage them to have some income generating activities. They might be on the farm, so they might keep a goat, they might keep some cows or something that can be able to get them to move. So as we wrap up, just some quick financial tips for those in the 40. Review your goals annually and adjust them. Adjust your plans as is needed. So on an annual basis, sit and review. Work with an advisor so that you get personalized strategies. Look out working with an advisor so that you have strategies. Avoid impulse buying so that you focus on long-term security over short-term luxuries. There's no problem. You can miss out the holiday to the coast, but you're actually able to buy that property on which you're going to be able to generate more revenue in your older age. So working with a financial advisor is very, very important. Avoiding impulse buying is very, very important. So by addressing these issues, if you're a Kenyan in your 40s, you can proactively be able to achieve financial security, you can stability, you can secure your family future, and you can retire comfortably. That's why Kate, they say, we read this verse in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. My people perish for lack of knowledge because they have rejected the knowledge. So we need to look out for this knowledge. What book are you reading in? Have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Have you read My Wallet Words? Who is the company you keep? Who are the peers? What is the discussion you're having with them? Are they just telling you about betting and how you're going to win betting, or just a football game? This is not for the 40s. You need a coach, you need an advisor, you need a mentor who can work with you. And maybe you need to take up a course and study. And that's what the masterclass is all about. If you want to join the masterclass, I think you're welcome. If you need help to deeper understand these aspects, we can chat. You can chat us in the course of the week, or you can join us next week on Tuesday for the masterclass. And like I said, it's very, very easy. It's a virtual program. Come in for the first one. It's called Come and See. It's for free. You will get a chance to see. And we're going to look at the psychology. How do we behave around money, and why do we do that? It's on Zoom. It starts at 7 p.m. for just 2 hours. So you just send a WhatsApp or send a text to 0708 150 137. You will enjoy your 40s. You will actually, like you just said, you will have financial stability. You will enjoy taking your children to school. You secure their future, and you prepare to retire in comfort. If we do that, I think we're going to be happier people. We can live our life, and we can say, truly,
Life begins at 40.
Yes, because we know how to get it done. Thank you very much. I think we
you.
have enjoyed this morning.